What is up, people? Welcome back to the YouTube. Today's video is a slightly different one. This is my first ever in-person client training camp. We're here at Premium Health and Wellness, and today with my clients we're going to be going through how to train the chest, how to train the back, delts, arms, all muscles of the upper body. We're going to be going through some anatomy. We're going to be going through some common training considerations when it does come to training your chest and all those different muscle groups. And then we're going to be getting some training in with the crew. So look forward to kind of going through this video with you. It's the first time I've ever done something like this. So yeah, let's see how we get on. All right. So probably the most important place to start when we're looking at training our upper body is just understanding what joints that we're looking at. Particularly, we're going to be looking at our shoulder joint, right? And separate to that is going to be our shoulder blades. So our shoulder blades are going to be positioned on the rear of your back. Now, when it does come to the shoulder blades themselves, they're going to be very much involved in pretty much all of our back training, okay? And learning how to stabilize it through specific movements is going to be very important, and understanding what type of motions that the shoulder blades do. So the shoulder blades, they're really going to control the likes of shrugging your shoulder blades up. They're going to help you pull them down. They're going to help you move them forward. I'll help you pull them back. All right. So these are just the four main functions of the likes of the scapula. So it's called elevation, depression as you pull them down, protraction as you pull forward, and retraction as you pull to the back. Now, if we maintain a fixed position here with your shoulder back, where you're doing some type of row motion, you're not able to get a lot of those muscles into a lengthened range. It'd be kind of similar to if you're training your chest and you're only coming down to maybe this position here. You're not getting a full lengthened position through the likes of the actual pec and getting to stretch through full range of motion, okay? Especially if you have that range available. So another kind of common misconception when it does come to training rear delts is you will see people come up all the way and they'll start to move their shoulder blades in like this. So I'm able to shrug inwards here, and that's like my mid traps. My rhomboids are going to be controlling some of that motion. Whereas when we're looking to actually train the likes of the rear delts, we really want to just kind of think about kind of moving our hand outwards like this, but not so much that we're starting to shrug back. Okay, well, now isolating different muscles and where do they sit in relation to these different joints. The chest is going to originate pretty much all on your sternum, so the inside of your chest bone, and we're also going to have attachment points up here, up towards your clavicle, okay, which is like your upper chest. And then we're going to have the likes of the more kind of lower fibers, which are around your costals, okay? Now, you're going to have your pec attaching pretty much here on the likes of the upper part of your upper arm, okay? So any type of motion where we're kind of bringing the arm across the body, the pec is going to be helping to contract the pec there. When we're looking at the pec in terms of these motions that we're going to get the most out of, right? So if we're looking at training the lower to mid fibers, a lot of our pressing movements, our typical pressing movements, they're going to help to kind of control that motion here. But if we do want a little bit more kind of upper pec bias, we do need to have more of an arm pat that's coming from a bit lower to higher, because those fibers are coming up very steep from here up towards the clavicle, okay? Now, we're going to go through different exercises that will help with that. But if we're looking at a pretty good coverall pec movement, it would be something like a 30-degree press. A 30-degree press is going to have enough of a kind of incline to the upper arm pat that's going to have some of those upper pec fibers involved, but it's also still going to have the likes of the lower and mid contributing too. But again, this is why we don't just use one exercise to train a particular muscle group. So we typically have maybe 2 to 3 different movements because of this variation in function and variation in fibers, right? And then we have the back, right? So the back is not just one muscle group, right? We've got many different muscles in the back. So we've got our lats, we have our rhomboids, we've got our teres major, we have our traps, upper, mid, lower, and we also have the likes of the delts, which I'm going to cover later on today. But the likes of the lats, right, they're the biggest muscle group of our posterior, right? So they're essentially spanning from around here, kind of just above your kind of hip bone. They're going to originate on the inside of your spine, and they're going to attach to the back of your arm. So they kind of have the opposite position to the likes of your chest. And they are also similar to the pec in terms of they are shaped like a fan. So they also do have different divisions where they have kind of lower fibers, they've got middle fibers, and so on. And different arm positions can challenge different portions of these, but again, similar to the likes of the pec. One, we can start off with a bias. So maybe you start off here, and you have the more kind of higher pulling position that's going to target potentially more of these lower pec fibers. But as you start to contract the pec and start to contract the lats, they get closer to failure, a lot of the fibers are going to be contracting in tandem, okay? But again, this is why exercise selection and variation can really, really help if you want really good development, because you can manipulate training through this range of motion, and then going through like lower reaches can help with slightly different parts of your back. But the upper back, like, it's very difficult to isolate one particular part of your upper back relative to others, because a lot of them are attaching to your shoulder blades. So with the likes of round boys, they're going to be helping particularly with retraction and protraction. We're going to have the likes of the teres major, which is very, very close to the lats. In fact, if we're thinking about the teres major is sitting on the back of your arm as well, like on your arm bone as well, along with the pecs and the lats, right? So this easy way to think about this is the pecs are going to sit at the front, then you're going to have the lats sit in the middle, and then you're going to have teres major kind of like sandwiching the two together.
What way do you teach that pull down, like, because do you teach that shoulder depression first and then pull, or is it a bit more of a smoother movement? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I teach as more of a smoother movement, because as you're going,
it just looks wrong when it's like.
Yeah, you're kind of break it down into two separate movements. So I try to train it as if it's just like one fluid motion altogether.
So they're almost hiding between their shoulders.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you struggle to potentially engage, like maybe your teres major or something like that, or even to try to, or struggle to like connect to your back, maybe it can be a good way to kind of help with that. But I think like once you learn what that feels like, you could essentially kind of move on, because you're kind of hoping that through somebody's training process, they're going to get better connection with muscle groups as they just continue to get more experience with training.
Would trying to have more of a flat back position in a lot of your movements help to shift more bias towards the upper pecs as opposed to having quite a large arch?
Yeah, I'd say for that, it would kind of depend on where your own individual anatomy is, right? So like somebody who, as for the first example, like has more of that like flat rib cage, they've already, like their posture is a little bit more like this. Them getting up into this position might be a little bit more kind of difficult for them. So like actually having more of a kind of extension through the spine might just give them even a little bit more stability there, as well as like bringing their shoulders less from the movement and putting the chest in a better position to actually drive the upper arm across the back. Somebody who is already kind of living in this position a lot, they might benefit a little bit more from kind of having a little bit more of a kind of chest down, kind of ribs down position. So I think like that'd be one of the main considerations here, but I wouldn't actually just look at like somebody outright and say, okay, that's what they need to do, because it all comes down to like, okay, when you're training your upper pecs, like what type of path motion allows you to kind of feel it the best, if that makes sense. Like one thing we can go through is, when we're done with the bench press, is we'll go through like setting up the likes of a cable press for the likes of the upper pecs, because you do see a lot of people set up something like the cable press or cable fly like incorrectly, because they think that just because the bench is inclined that they're getting the incline of the upper back fibers, right? When it all comes down to arm path, where you kind of feel that connection the most. I'm going to show you what like I will do for a proper setup here, and how I'll be able to get in the best position to both train my chest but also improve my power. So from here, what I generally do is I squeeze a bar, I pull myself up and under the bar, and then I think about sliding my upper back and neck into position, okay? So I'm thinking about kind of creating my neck as flat against the pad here as possible. And you'll see my arse is lifted up off the bench, and this is to help create the arch, okay? So my glutes are contracted here. I'm thinking about driving the upper back and neck into the pad and creating a nice kind of arch through the likes of my lower back into my mid back, okay? Now from here, I can essentially just think about popping my elbows out. You see there's just a slight movement. There's very little movement through the likes of the shoulders. Once the bar is out of the rack, slowly let down the arse. And from here, in a better position to press. I've got a lot more stability through the likes of my upper back. Does anybody have any questions on the way I set up there?
Just on the bar to be over your neck, kind of much on your eyes, like usually.
Yeah, so I would set up with the bar pretty much like between my nose to my chin to like maybe my neck. The reason for it being is you want to have space to clear the bar. And then the other thing is going to be down to bar path, okay? Show you a very common thing that we'll see with people who are new to benching. So what you'll see a lot of times when people are benching is they'll come down, right? Now, you'll notice that the bar path, it didn't come directly down over my shoulders. it came down to around like the middle of my chest, or just the lower chest bone. But you'll see a lot of people just push out, right? So what you'll notice now is that if I push out, it's not over my shoulder joint at all. Now, this is not an issue here because 20 kilos, but if this is loaded, I would absolutely miss the rep. What we want to think about from the bench press bar path is you want to think about pressing over the shoulders early, because this is going to help to stack the joints, okay? So unlike you pressing with that machine there, that's a guided path of motion. You don't have to think about starting from here, going to here, and going to here. There's no option. With the bench press, there is a lot of freedom that we have within the movement. And with any type of barbell movement, we want to ensure, like at the start of the movement, we're stacked, end of the movement, we're stacked. Think about the likes of a barbell squat, right? The barbell squat, ideally the bar is going to be like directly lined over the middle of your foot. Now, if you decided when you're coming up that you're going to stand like this, you'll fall forward, right? And it's kind of the same here. As I press through, and if I have too much of a forward bar path, and the weight is very heavy, my shoulder flexors, my anterior delt is having to work like extremely hard here. And you'll see a lot of people when they do have this like press straight up, they'll get here and then they'll fail the rep, because in this position now, the shoulder is not as strong as it is down here. When the bar is furthest away from the shoulder, it's going to have like the best leverage, especially here at the bottom. But once we get through the mid-range, that's the job of the pec. But if the bar is all the way out here, the pec can't produce as much power as it can when it's in this position, which is why we want to also kind of stack the joints. So we're essentially trying to like pay heed to physics is the thing, you know, and the way our muscles are actually kind of producing power within those positions. Okay, I think we can start going through the actual movements now, right? I think that's enough for me talking for this part of the morning anyway. I won't have a huge amount to cover on the likes of arms. Arms are pretty fucking simple. But we're going to start going through different movements here. Went through the bench press. Is there any other questions on the bench press?
What's your bench?
What's my bench? Not big enough. So I think we'll start with the machines first. First thing is first, with any machine that you're getting into, is just want to check the setup is correct, and then you have to know what you're looking for with the setup, if it's correct or not. So the most important thing that I'd say here is at the bottom of the movement, I should be able to kind of keep that like downward position of like my shoulder blades to feel my pecs the best. Again, as per Rory mentioned earlier on, like some people might do a little bit better with trying to keep their rib cage a little bit more down if they're like always in this rib flared position all day long, right? Next thing I want to check is when I'm in this bottom position, can I keep the elbow joint in line with my wrist joint, okay? So I want to be able to try to maintain stacking there, because that's going to just allow me to have like the best amount of power there. If I am in this position at the bottom, automatically I am starting to shift in tension away from the chest, and definitely feeling a lot more kind of anterior delt, even just without even trying to press here, right? So if I keep my arm in this position here, puts the pec in a better position to produce power. So these machines are quite cool because you have this little foot pedal, all right? So just when you're actually doing the training session, just keep that in mind. So this allows you to get in a position a little bit easier. Now, on some machines, which you'll have in your gym, right? So you might have a chest press that's kind of like that one. You can actually get like a plate, or you can get like a yoga block, or you can get something and leverage it in between the stoppers, and that kind of functions as this foot plate. Right, so that's enough of that. So get in the position here, right? So keep my shoulder blades down, but not back. Elbow just in line behind the likes of the wrist. And from here, you can push your head back if that feels comfortable for you, or you don't need to at all. It's really down to you, what you feel best. And then it's just a case of trying to push through. Now, as I push through here, I'm not just thinking about kind of pushing forward, but I'm also trying to think about kind of driving my biceps towards each other, okay? Because that internal cue, right, of thinking like, okay, trying to direct a movement or sensation within my body, that can help you get like a better mind-muscle connection. Now, that will help with some exercises, but might not help with others, right? So there's some exercises and some muscle groups you might be able to internally cue. So I want my pec to contract, I want my lat to contract. Other movements where maybe you don't have as good a connection, you might need to use some type of like reference point, so that's an external cue. So an example here could be like, so if you're doing a lateral raise, and versus thinking about, okay, contract your side delt, you might think about, okay, I want to drive my upper arm into the ceiling. So something that's giving you a direction to which to focus on. So again, come back to what I mentioned earlier with what moves, what stays still. In this position here, the only thing that should really be moving is the likes of the upper arm bone and the elbow joint, right? So the shoulder joint, the elbow joint, as they move through the motion. Anything else of that, we start to get kind of pushing over, it's going to be very hard under load to get yourself back into this position. Okay, so that's the main thing, right? Under load, things change drastically, all right? So that is that one covered. That's definitely going to be one we're going to have to use these little blocks. So be aware when you set up like these, okay, that they can come down and clatter you. Keep that in mind. If you have a spotter, which you'll have today because you'll be training with each other, that will help. Now, again, just getting to this position, I want to check, is my setup correct, okay? So, okay, in this position here, it is feeling quite restrictive on me already. So I might just check if I put the seat, okay, putting it up, seemed to have helped a little bit. Drawing my shoulder base down. So again, what I'm looking for here, elbow just underneath the wrist, relatively stacked as best I can. Now, the kind of big difference between this one and that machine over there is clearly the path of motion, right? So you get to see the direction of the likes of my upper arm as it comes across the likes of this upper portion of my pec. Now again, if I really wanted to try to get a little bit more upper pec, and I can see if it would suit me, is I could think about kind of driving my chest down a little bit more, get my back a little bit more flush to the pad. But when I do this here, for me personally, I'm just getting a lot more kind of front delt, right? So again, that's where you have to kind of experiment with what is going to feel best for you from an actual kind of positioning perspective. So again, for me, more that kind of chest down position, definitely getting way more front delt here. If I drive my chest up a little bit more, I feel a lot more contraction through the likes of the upper back, okay? So again, the main consideration, like that one, elbow in line with the wrist. And then again, similar to the cueing, driving the upper arm across the back, and again, trying to almost get the elbow to this opposite shoulder, and that'll get a good contraction to the upper back, okay? Now, again, with the position of these, most shoulder movements, most shoulder machines, you're probably going to want some stopper because a lot of them can put you into a very kind of low range position that you might not have access to control to, or might just be a little bit uncomfortable on the actual shoulder joint itself. So most of them are going to maybe help with this, or having a foot pedal, or just getting a lift off with it, or just ensuring that you don't have the seat set too close, or if they do have some type of adjustability where you can actually adjust the arms of the machine, they do want to have it such as that there's a bit of space between your shoulder to your wrist position, right? If it's too far down, you will start off a position which is too painful. So again, you can kind of see here, if I have it too far down, there's not as much kind of range of motion. It doesn't seem to be as beneficial. But if I have it too far up, again, now really have to get into position. Struggle to get into position, okay? So I guess like a key kind of thing with this one is you do have to almost kind of think a bit more about kind of pulling your elbows more forward underneath the wrist than just allowing them to kind of relax naturally. Because even here, you will probably find a little bit more strain through the actual shoulder joint, particularly like the rotator cuffs. So you might want to actually kind of pull the elbows a little bit more forward there. Again, kind of stack the joints, feel a lot more comfortable, and then as you kind of press through. Now, if you find on something like a shoulder press like this, that your shoulders they still have juice to go, but your triceps are giving out, this is where actually implementing things like partials can be quite helpful. So on a lot of like chest pressing movements, like particular machines, and shoulder pressing movements, they will have that like converging arm path, right? So you can see here, one of the things that's really contributing is the likes of my triceps in this position, as it's helping to extend the elbow joint. Now, if you do want to keep more of the attention on the likes of your shoulders or the likes of your pecs, you can perform like quote unquote half reps and not force yourself to strain through the sticking point, because it's always going to be through this portion where a lot of people are going to start to have like those grinder reps come in, but they could finish that and be like, wow, my triceps are killing me right now, but my shoulders still are lagging behind. And that's where actually maybe kind of living a little bit more in the positions where we're not getting full extension in through the top of the reps, can help and keep the tension where you want it. Okay. You didn't see any other attachments, did you? I actually quite like this attachment. The other one is a little bit too close in, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little baby handle. All right, so Nutri-Grip. So coming into more of an overhead pulling pattern, like when we're just looking at training like the back in general. Like if you have one horizontal pull, one vertical pull, it's kind of all you need, really. You know, obviously you can vary up with the light arm patch, which we talked about, the more flared one to the more tucked one, but horizontal pull, vertical pull, you kind of got the majority of the back work, right? So we're going to move into this now. So again, I am thinking about clamping my arms to my side, thinking about almost like I'm trying to clamp my armpit shut. So I like to think about when I'm starting to pull down, that I'm trying to get some tension going at the very start of the movement. You will see some people that set up and then they'll just reach up and they'll try to get themselves to position. I try to essentially pull some slack out of the cable before I get into position, more so to cue my lats at the start of the movement. So when I grab this here, I'm thinking about clamping those armpits shut and pulling my shoulders down, and automatically I can feel my lats contracting. If I can feel it before I even start the set, it's going to be a high likelihood that as I'm going through the set, I'm going to get more out of them, okay? So trying to establish some type of mind-muscle connection out the gate. So again, pull my shoulder blades down. It also allows me to actually get into position easier, okay? Because I've got more leverage over the weight versus if I'm here and now I'm looking to pull down, okay? Especially as the weight gets heavy. All right, so pull the shoulder blades down, pull myself down into position now. Now this knee pad, I need to fucking put this up. Okay, that C height is perfect for me. So again, I'll come down here, pull this slack out of the machine, elbows driven down. Okay, cool. Now, kind of position here, driving up into that pad, so doing that kind of mini calf raise and maintaining that through the movement. Now, with this motion here, I am thinking about actively trying to keep my ribs a little bit more down. So, remember earlier on when we talked about the wide grip one, and we were saying, okay, if we want to extend more through here, going to get a little bit more up back as it pulls us forward. With this one, consider trying to bias more lats. We want to try to keep a little bit more of kind of contracted abs, okay? Because now the elbows are pulling down in front, and that what's happened there is the lats are having better leverage now, okay? So again, having a deep breath in here. As I'm in this position now, keeping those abs contracted, there's a greater lengthening happening from pretty much the base of the lats all the way up to that upper arm bone. Big exhale on the pull and driving the elbows down into the side. Now, one issue you'll see when people are setting up for cable fly, specifically if they're looking to hit their upper chest, is they might just think, okay, bench incline must be inclined chest. So I presume from this position here, again, yeah. So we'll talk about why this is also a shitty setup in a second. So you'll see here, right, as I come down maybe into a fly, where are my arms going at the side? If you just look directly from the side, yeah, exactly, right? So if I wanted to actually kind of use this, like a particular setup to train my pecs, I'd probably go more of a kind of decline pattern like this. And the reason for that is I want those cables to align with my upper arm bone, my forearm, as I'm going through the motion. If I decide I want to hit my upper chest with these, that feels incredibly awkward, right? Imagine if like the dumbbells are always going to be pointing straight down, which is why if you're doing an incline press, right, like you kind of have to follow the path of motion. But if like the resistance is pointing the complete opposite direction and your arm is getting yanked back that way, well, now again, you're putting the force towards different muscle groups. Now, if I wanted to get more upper pec here, what I would do is I would adjust this, okay? I adjust it to the point where I get the cables running in line with the upper arm bone on the forearm. So already this feels just a hell of a lot nicer in this position, okay? So again, directionality, where do I want to go? I want to bring my elbow to pretty much my opposite shoulder. And that would be a better position for me to hit the likes of the upper chest. Don't be afraid when you're training to like play around at different positions when you do an exercise and feel what works best for you, because how it looks for me might not look the same for you, right? Different experiences. Something like this, I just try to keep the tension where it kind of feels the best throughout the movement. When performing a dumbbell fly, it can be slightly different. I'm just going to demonstrate that before we go any further. Right, so when performing like a dumbbell fly, for some people, they might find if they come down into a position where they are very much still in this position, palms up to the ceiling here, they might feel that, okay, I'm definitely feeling more shoulder here than I am pec. So they might start in this position, and that's how I teach it to a lot of lads here, is as they come down, letting the palm to rotate over. Now again, consider the pecs do internally rotate the arm. It will come down to a similar position as their dumbbell press. Again, good stretch across the chest here, less across the delts. And now from here, essentially just think about driving the elbows towards each other. And you might feel that you get a little bit more of a pec contraction here. Now, key thing you might notice here is the position of the dumbbell over my elbow joint versus having it all the way out here. Okay, so having it here, it doesn't decrease any like tension on the pec. Having it out here, what else is going to help stabilize that movement? Yeah, like your bicep is working extremely hard in this position. I think it's like doing the curl in this position, right? So that's really fighting hard to stabilize your shoulder in that position. And if that is increasing the effort or demand of the movement and shifting away from the area you're looking to build, is worthwhile doing. So again, trying to kind of maintain, similar to the press, that more stacked position of the wrist over the elbow. And again, just trying to keep the tension where you want it. That's essentially like the crux of everything we're kind of going through today. It's just trying to keep the tension where you want it, where you need it, ensuring that the muscle you're starting the set with is the thing that's finishing it, and it's the thing that you're keeping attention on. So what we are going to do is we're going to break up into groups. How many people have we got here? I'm bad at judging crowds. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have 8 exercises, all right? We're going to rotate between them. You're going to be in pairs. You're going to do one exercise, spot the other person, encourage them, and then you'll swap positions, of course, and then you go over to the next exercise that's in your sequence, okay? Yeah, and so let's go. Come on. All right, update. So we have pretty much a lot of like the theory considerations for different exercises done. Now we're just getting the lads to train. So I've got them to go through different exercises like doing supersets essentially of doing like chest movement, back movement, and just getting them trained together, right? Because most of them don't train with other people; they train alone, so they don't really have like experience of like what it's like to have somebody there watching over you, pushing you hard. So I want them to get that experience as well as like me coming around and actually like coaching them in person. If I do see that they have anything to improve on, because while I get to see them in their video updates like week to week and they send me over training videos, there's nothing beats like actually seeing somebody in person, because you can't correct everything from like a 2D screen, and as well you're not getting instant feedback, right? So if I ask somebody in a text message, how does that feel? I don't get feedback from them until maybe the next few days or next week or something like that, right? So getting instant feedback from lads, see if like this position feels good for you, that ensures that when they go into their training sessions next week, they're training these muscle groups, that they're like, okay, I know what positions I should be looking for, what feels wrong, what feels good, and that's just going to allow them to have better training going forward. So yeah, that's the whole point of what we're doing right now. The practical side of things is way more interesting than the theory, nerdy stuff, the sciencey stuff. Getting after it is the fun part.